Spectator Sports. This is Sebastian Fonseca, and we have another loaded episode for you guys today. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the page. Like I said, it makes a massive difference in the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe to the TikTok and Instagram pages, as World Cup coverage will be there as the knockout stages have already begun. To start, the Minnesota Vikings hosted the New York Jets, and the Jets are in the thick of a very competitive AFC wildcard race. The Vikings actually had a chance to clinch the division already in early December, as they're just head and shoulders ahead of their competition in that division. But the Vikings were able to pick up a win in a very close 27-22 victory. The Jets' first 5 scoring drives all resulted in field goals, and this is when really comes to bite you in the butt. When you're in enemy territory, you have to finish off those drives for touchdowns instead of field goals. Mike White has been fairly productive in his first 2 starts. This really utilizing Elijah Moore, who I said earlier has been having issues getting installed into this year's offense, but also with Garrett Wilson, who's definitely showing signs as being a true number 1 receiver, had another nice game. So with those 2 weapons being utilized properly, I think this is just more signs that Mike White should be the continuing starter thanks to this offensive productivity. The problem is, like I said, is when they couldn't execute in the red zone. We had on the last real good threat that the Jets had, they had 4th and goal at the 1, and Berrios dropped a crucial 4th down catch that would have resulted in the go-ahead score. So just had to find ways to execute deep in the red zone. They just couldn't get the job done. And now they've dropped to 7-5, which means they are now 7th in the AFC wildcard race, just holding on to that last spot. They got some help thanks to the Patriots dropping that Thursday night game, and then also the Chargers losing to the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday. So they're still very much alive. I'm still happy with Mike White's play in this game. Despite that last interception, we can see that he was trying to make something out of nothing. It's 4th and 10, and you're just trying to get the ball into the end zone. Not the best of throws, but obviously really good play by the defensive back there. So moving forward, they have a really big matchup against the Buffalo Bills, who are now leading the division thanks to a win over the Patriots and other things that we'll talk about later in this podcast. For both teams, this is a crucial matchup, as the Bills have already lost their previous matchups to the Jets, and the Jets continuously need to pick up wins to remain competitive in this AFC wildcard race. The Vikings are now continuing to be undefeated in these one-possession ball games, but they continue to play down to their level of competition and elevate their play to these NFC title contenders. So I still labeled these Vikings as pretenders, but there's still a lot of time left for them to improve, and with them still very much alive for the top seed in the NFC, we'll see what this Vikings team can do in the NFC playoffs come January. In a classic NFC East rivalry, we saw the Washington Commanders take on the New York Giants in MetLife Stadium, and this game actually ended up in a tie, which is now the 2nd tie already this season. Both teams were coming in just separated by a half game, with the New York Giants being 7-4 and the Commanders being 7-5. The Commanders were up early in this game thanks to mostly Terry McLaurin's productive days, but after the Giants were able to get back into this game thanks to a dual rushing attack with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, they took a 20-13 lead going into the 4th quarter. But again, Taylor Heineke led the game-tying drive thanks to a great catch and run by Jahan Dotson to even up the game under 2 minutes to go. I mean, this Washington team continues to fight and remain competitive, and with this tie happening now, they have a really crucial matchup coming up in 2 weeks. And now with this tie, these 2 teams will once again play each other in 2 weeks. The Commanders now head into their bye week, so they get a chance to get healthy and get some rest and learn from their mistakes in this initial matchup. So I think the matchup really favors the Commanders heading into their next game. For the Giants, they now face the league best Philadelphia Eagles in their next matchup, so I really think they had a missed opportunity to win this game and get a leg up on their division rivals, but they get a game back, thankfully, with them playing the Commanders in 2 weeks. So we'll see what they can do against the Eagles and then come up with their big matchup against the Commanders in 2 weeks. The Eagles totally dismantled the Tennessee Titans, as this was A.J. Brown's revenge game. He had over 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, both fantastic deep balls thanks to Jalen Hurts. So really impressed with their play. I mean, the defense got after Ryan Tannehill and shut down Derrick Henry. So those early concerns about the leaky run defense have kind of been solved with them playing more competitive running backs and offensive lines. We've seen Derrick Henry shut down totally in this game, and they had to resort to the passing attack and make Ryan Tannehill beat them, but they smothered him and only allowed a touchdown that was a really nice contested catch thanks to Treylon Burks. But they sacked Ryan Tannehill 6 times in this game, and I mean, this Eagles pass rush, I mean, it's probably second best to only Dallas at this point. They have a bevy of pass rushers over 5 sacks in this season. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, and then Javon Hargrave. I mean, so much production out of this defensive line. And also thanks to the return of Jordan Davis really helped out shutting down the run game. So with them playing a lot better, I mean, they just really had a complete game. I mean, even their special teams who was having issues with the return game, we saw a couple big returns against the Green Bay Packers, and them also having a very weak punt return game. We saw Britton Covey have a career high punt return in this game, so really impressive stuff, all facets of the game. But also we have to turn the eyes and ears onto Jalen Hurts, who with this latest win in this aerial assault, now this is another game where he had a career high in passing yards, 380, and 3 touchdown passes, another one on the ground. So I think he really needs to continue to be in this MVP conversation. There's been some news about Mahomes probably being the leader, very rightfully so. I mean, he's having a historic productive season, but also you got to consider the team's production as well. So the stats that really help out Hurts is that he has a dual threat capability. He's contributed both on the air and the ground with 29 total touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. So compared to Mahomes' 8 interceptions. And he's also had 68% completion rate. So really productive stuff from Jalen Hurts. While Mahomes, I know, has been stellar this season, I still think that Jalen Hurts should be up there for the MVP. Maybe finish as the runner-up depending on how the season plays out. But if the Eagles do finish as the league's best team, I would probably give it to Jalen Hurts as the MVP for the 2022 season. On Thursday Night Football, we had a pivotal matchup in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills traveling to New England to play the Patriots. And this was a game that the Bills continuously needed to have as they wanted to remain competitive, as they were coming into this week trailing the Miami Dolphins on that tiebreaker. So they had a really nice game. I mean, still Josh Allen had a issue with ball security as he lacked some pocket awareness and got stripped on a play, but still, just to nitpick a little bit, I have to hold Josh Allen to a very high standard as I'm a huge fan of his. Still overall a very solid game. 2 passing touchdowns, 1 to Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. And also this rushing attack has been adding another dimension to this highly potent Bills offense, as James Cook has been getting more reps at running the ball and adding a nice complement to lead back Devin Singletary. So if these 2 backs continue to play at this pace, and I think there's just going to be so many issues. I mean, you have Stephon Diggs on the outside, you have Gabriel Davis, probably one of the best deep threats, Dawson Knox coming across the middle, and then you have to also account for Josh Allen's legs. So if this is this Bills team, and now obviously they have to get some bodies back on the defensive end with Jordan Poyer in and out of the lineup, I still see the Bills as a huge title threat. And thanks to some events that happened on Sunday, they get back at the top of the AFC playoff picture. We saw that the Patriots have been having some offensive issues in this game. They've only had 10 points, and mostly due to Mac Jones' regression in his sophomore year. Now, we know that play calling duties have been given to Matt Patricia, but they had a dispute on the sideline where Mac Jones was really getting the face with the offensive staff, saying that their play calls were being trash and not really running the ball at an effective pace. Now, mostly Mac Jones has been very inept in this season, but I know that his receivers haven't been the best as well. Overall, I do think that Bill Belichick has to look into new offensive coordinators this season. So the Patriots need to find a way to help Mac Jones's growth as he tries to be a franchise quarterback for this Patriots team, because their defense is a very good unit. I mean, Devin McCourty and Matthew Judon anchoring that defense is a really good unit. So that's a defense that can win you several games. I don't know about a division, but it's a playoff worthy defense. So overall, the Patriots still have a lot of work to do if they want to make the postseason. And a huge afternoon game between the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers. This is now Mike McDaniel's return to San Francisco as he's coming off the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Obviously a very productive coach this year, where he's been installing a lot of creative looks, especially for this Miami Dolphins offense. And this was showcased on the game's opening possession. On the first play of the game, from scrimmage at least, we saw Tua loft the ball to receiver that took it all the way to the house. But the Niners were able to shake this off. I mean, after that, their defense only allowed 10 points for the rest of this game, really clamping down on this Miami offense, and they forced 3 turnovers. Tua started to look a little bit more mediocre compared to his earlier starts this year, and he left the game also with an injury as he didn't finish off this game. So that's something to look out for. But obviously the biggest storyline of this game is the season-ending injury to Jimmy G as he broke his foot on San Francisco's opening drive. So now Brock Purdy is going to be leading San Francisco's offense from here on out. He's a 7th round draft pick, actually Mr. Irrelevant in this year, but showed a lot of competency in this offense. He's walking into probably one of the most loaded teams in the NFL. I mean, you have McCaffrey out of the backfield, you have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, so I think he's going to be just fine. He just doesn't have to mess up the game. Now, he did have a turnover, but still had 2 touchdown passes, showing a lot of competency. Now, a full week to get integrated into this offense, so it's going to be really interesting to see what Brock Purdy's going to be looking like, as now the Niners have to adjust for the second time this season, losing a really good quarterback. So obviously the Super Bowl hopes take a huge dip, unfortunately, with this latest injury, but their offense and whole team is very much loaded, as this defense is like championship caliber defense thanks to Nick Bosa, who really wrecked the game from the start, as he had 3 sacks, including the game-ending strip sack of Tua. So if this defense can keep you in games, and as long as Brock Purdy doesn't cause too many issues on offense, I see the Niners still making a fairly deep run in this post. For Miami, this is obviously a huge missed opportunity, as we know that Mike McDaniels knew a lot of concepts that this 49ers defense can run, but also we know that the 49ers defense knows a lot of looks that Mike McDaniels likes to run. So I think it goes both ways. Regardless, this is now a big loss in the spectrum of the AFC playoff race, with now Miami dipping back into the AFC's leading wildcard spot as the 5th seed, and now the Bills ascending to the top of the AFC. They have some work cut out for them, and now they have a big matchup in a couple weeks with the Buffalo Bills. They have to travel up to Buffalo in the cold, so it's going to have to be a big prove-it game as Miami tries to sweep Buffalo to regain possession of the AFC East. Now, another huge matchup in this loaded Sunday slate was the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, the Bengals beat the Chiefs twice last year, once in the regular season and then the second time in the AFC Championship game. They've proven to really have as much firepower with the Kansas City Chiefs so they can compete on an offensive perspective. Cincinnati imposed their will early against Kansas City, taking the opening possession for a touchdown, and then after holding Kansas City to a field goal, they later scored another touchdown, making the lead 14-3. After Kansas City had a touchdown to cut the deficit to 4, Cincinnati was primed to add to their lead as they were threatening deep in Kansas City Chief territory. But this is when the defense for the Chiefs stood tall with a goal line stand. I didn't really agree with the play call here. Going up 7 is still a pretty big thing, as the Chiefs had the ball to start the second half and then continued to get offensive momentum. They had a 24-17 lead heading into the 4th quarter, as they had pretty much all momentum. In the 4th quarter, Joe Burrow put the Bengals on his back yet again, providing 10 points, including the go-ahead touchdown pass to Chris Evans, and Mahomes was sacked, and that's resulted in a long field goal attempt from about 52 yards. It sailed right, so they remained trailing 27-24 at that moment in time. And after that, the Bengals didn't allow the Chiefs to see the ball, as Joe Burrow operated the 4-minute offense to precision on a nice 3rd down and 11 pass that sealed the game. And now the Bengals move on to 3-0 against these Kansas City Chiefs. Remember the last 2 matchups, they also had Tyreek Hill. And we were talking about playoff positioning last time, as I would love to see the Bengals take on the Tennessee Titans, as I think that's a free victory, as they've had their number. And maybe they really invite a matchup against these Kansas City Chiefs, as they've proven not to be scared of them. They've gone into their building in Arrowhead and won there in the AFC title game last year. This Bengals team is a huge dark horse. I mean, I even think it's disrespectful to call them a dark horse at this moment in time. Really impressive stuff with the Bengals. They are getting healthy. They'll be getting Joe Mixon back, and this defense can get turnovers when necessary. And again, their offense is one of the most dangerous in the league. They can rally from any deficit really and continuously put up points. Joe Burrow has proven it that he can do it on the game's biggest stages, so look for them to continuously try to progress and even probably win the AFC North, as Baltimore is going to be without Lamar Jackson for at least a week or two, as he suffered a knee injury in their matchup against Denver. So that leaves the door open for Cincinnati to even claim the division in the AFC North. On Sunday Night Football, the Indianapolis Colts took on the Dallas Cowboys, and Indy was actually playing really well for most of this game. They were only down 2 heading into the fourth quarter, but this is when the wheels totally fell off, as the Dallas Cowboys scored 33 fourth quarter points, a franchise record. Most of this came off of a bevy of turnovers, including a scoop and scores. Dallas team is very explosive. They can score in a bevy of ways, whether it's through the running game, the passing game, and even getting scores on defense. Obviously, their pass rush is probably one of the best in the league. And now it continues to be a fact that this is definitely the Eagles' biggest threat in the NFC. These two teams will be playing each other on Christmas Eve in a few weeks. And as long as both teams remain healthy, I'm excited to see how that matchup turns out, as that's going to determine who wins the division and also who probably gets the number 1 seed in the NFC. For my offensive player of the week, I'm going to name Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, as these are definitely one of the best 2 wide receiver quarterback duos in this league. I mean, this is just another highly productive game between these two. And then for my defensive player of the week, I'm going to be naming Nick Bosa. I mean, 3 sacks, including the strip sack to really seal the deal against the Dolphins. So really impressive stuff, as he's been anchoring this 49ers defense and now even leading the league in sacks. For my teams of the week, I'm going to definitely name the 49ers, as they had a huge victory over the Miami Dolphins, but we'll see what happens with this new quarterback, Brock Purdy, moving forward. The Eagles obviously romping the Tennessee Titans and shutting down Derrick Henry. The Bengals once again getting the best of the Kansas City Chiefs, and then obviously with the Dallas Cowboys scoring 54 points, it's hard not to put them as one of the teams of the week. With the NBA, the Pelicans have been a nice story this year, as they've been surging up the Western Conference standings, winning 4 consecutive games and now standing as the West 2 seed, mostly led by Zion Williamson. In a recent matchup against the OKC Thunder, he had a great game, specifically defensively, where he held opposing players as their closest defender to just 2 of 14 shooting. Really productive stuff. Obviously, we know he's great at running the floor for layups and dunks, as he's been shooting just a shade below 60% this year. If he can just stay healthy, and along with Brandon Graham and that veteran presence in CJ McCollum, this Pelicans team is going to be a really dangerous team come postseason time. They have a few big tests as they play the Phoenix Suns in the month of December, so if they can remain competitive, even winning 2 of those 3 matchups, I see them being big contenders in the Western Conference playoffs. In our weekly Warriors watch, the Warriors have continued to ascend up the Western Conference standings, as they're now 6th place in the West, and they're winners of 7 of their past 10 matchups, and mainly due to Klay Thompson's continuous play that's been highly productive. I mean, shooting well from the outside and being an ample defender, and then also Jordan Poole being a solid player in terms of offensive productivity. I mean, he's taking smarter looks at the basket, and then overall the defense has been shored up. They've been playing against some softer competition. Still, they're taking advantage of those moments. So with the Warriors in the thick of this postseason mix, I think they're definitely going to be remaining in that. They probably won't be able to get the top seed, but if they can be a top 4 or if not 3 seed, they're going to be really competitive in the Western Conference. Another nice story for the NBA season has been Simons, as he's been doing really well, as Damian Lillard has been in and out of the lineup this year. This season's been doing really well, scoring about 25 points a game, about 44% from the field, just a tick below 40% from deep, and about 90% from the free throw line. Really productive stuff, as he's had experience being the go-to option, as Dame was out most of last season, so that's been getting some really good reps for Simons. Now I really look at him as probably being Dame's best backcourt member, even surpassing CJ McCollum, and that really means no disrespect to McCollum. I mean, he's a great player, but I really even see all-star potential for Simons in the future, as he's just been so productive from the outside and really operating the offense despite Lillard's absence. But obviously Simons isn't alone. Got to give credit to Jeremy Grant, as he's been a really productive player, being the 3rd leading scorer for this Trailblazer team, being an ample defender too, so really good credit to him. And then also Yusuf Nurkic, who's manned the paint area and been a productive scorer from inside. As long as Dame can stay healthy and the Trailblazers continue to play at this recent clip, I see them being a really productive team in the postseason, definitely exceeding my initial expectation. I wanted to give some huge praise for Anthony Davis. In this recent tear, especially during this weekend, he had 44 points, even outplaying Giannis in the game against Milwaukee on Friday. And then on Sunday, in a game that I actually witnessed in DC against the Wizards, he had a double nickel game, 55 points, 17 rebounds, 3 blocks. So dominant. And in this season overall, he's been averaging 27 points a game, about 14 rebounds and 2.5 blocks. This is the Anthony Davis that the Lakers signed up for, and that's kind of the play that he's had back in 2020 when they won the title. Obviously, the Lakers are far point away from winning any titles as they're still outside the play-in tournament right now, but they've been doing really well. I mean, in this new adjusted lineup that they've had, they've gotten back some bodies. LeBron is back into the mix, and then they've been winning 8 of their last 10 games, so now they're hovering around 500. Russell Westbrook has been great lately, coming off the bench, being that 6-man role. He had a really good assist game in the game against the Wizards. And then Lonnie Walker, I mean, he's been a reliable third option for this team. Really impressive stuff. And obviously, Austin Reeves, I mean, he's been super productive as their deep shooter this year, averaging over 40%. So this Lakers team has been really putting things together, and knock on wood for Anthony Davis to stay healthy as the Lakers are back to becoming relevant and remaining competitive. And that's all for this episode of Spectator Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been fun making 30 episodes so far. I'm so excited for what more has to come for this podcast. And look on for our Instagram and TikTok pages as content from the FIFA World Cup will be on there regarding recaps with the knockout stages. Until next time, stay safe and take care.